Hello. Welcome to my channel Touching Stories. You're about to hear an amazing story about love and unexpected decisions. Enjoy watching. It was evening outside, sweltering. A storm was brewing, not a breeze or a draft. Harry was on his way home after a difficult and arduous business negotiation. As he drove past the park, the man wanted to take a walk along the path to the large pond. He often went there to get away from work and relax a little. Harry braked sharply, parked, and got out of the car. He slowly walked to the clean and beautiful pond, sat down on a bench, watching the ducks dive and quack merrily. Not far away, a grandmother and her grandson, a boy about 7 years old, were walking. He was so funny and red-headed like the sun. The old woman was limping very badly on one leg, and her grandson was supporting her by the hand, helping her not to fall down. From the outside, this care of the baby looked very touching. The woman sat down tiredly on a bench nearby, and the fidgety boy opened his tattered backpack, took out a sheet, and ran up to Harry. "Hello, man. Please make me a boat out of paper. I want to put her on the water, and my grandmother does not know how." Harry laughed. "Let me teach you. It's not hard. Look, we take a leaf on both sides, fold it in half." Suddenly the man read, in passing, what was written on an old yellowed sheet of paper. "My darling, breakfast is on the table. Your favorite cheesecakes. On your way out, shut the door. Your Harry." Harry even caught his breath and broke into a cold sweat. It couldn't be. It was his own note left to a man years ago. He wouldn't mistake his own handwriting for anyone else's. It's unbelievable. Harry grew up in an orphanage and went through harsh trials before becoming successful and rich, achieving everything on his own, from scratch. The young and negligent mother abandoned her son in the maternity ward, just ran away, and that was it. So the child never knew a mother's affection or warmth at home. All his childhood he was surrounded by official walls and adults indifferent to the fate of orphans. There were humiliations and punishments, malnutrition, and deafening homesickness. Harry realized early on that he had no one to rely on but himself. And he learned to fight, not to let himself be hurt. In addition, the boy discovered an aptitude and a craving for technology, including electronics. He himself, without anyone else's help, learned to figure out and fix both the phones and the computer, and soon even the teachers themselves began to ask him for help and advice, and he became respected for his intelligence and wit. In addition, Harry had a knack for commerce. He knew and understood where and what could be bought cheaply and sold more profitable and expensive, making himself a handsome profit. After graduation, one of the teachers, taking pity on the talented and stubborn boy, helped him with his admission to university. Thanks to him, Harry did not go down the wrong path like many others, but became a certified economist and started his own business. At first, he set up a small firm to repair and sell office equipment and telephones, and little by little the orders came in. The income increased, and the business picked up steam. Harry lived in a tiny and deadly room, which the government had allocated him, ate only pasta and the cheapest sausage, and invested all the profits in his brainchild. It was very hard. The guy worked like a squirrel in a wheel, 24 hours a day, malnourished and lacked sleep. But over time, he bought a comfortable house, furnished it with love, and began to enjoy the comfort. Like a career was going more than fine. But in my personal life, Harry was categorically unlucky. He fell in love at first sight with a gorgeous blonde Michelle when he met her at a friend's birthday party. The girl literally captivated the young man by her beauty. She seemed so sweet and charming. The romance spun. It was stormy and passionate. The couple soon got married. But after the wedding, it was like Michelle was replaced. Where did the modest and quiet spouse began to splurge money right and left, and only thought that the new clothes and social events. As it turned out, the household and family life was not adapted to Michelle, and learn it did not even going, however, and look for work. About children, too, she did not want to hear. They say, "It is too early." What is the rush? So it turned out that bedtime pleasures had become boring and did not please either of them, and there was nothing else that the couple had in common. The man just pissed off when he came home to see the wife chattering away nonstop with some girlfriend and a dull pizza from an expensive restaurant for dinner. As the years passed, nothing changed. In response to her husband's occasional request to cook or bake, Michelle only snorted. "Why do I have to slave at the stove? Hire a cook, what's the problem?" 5 years later, Harry filed for divorce. He was tired of the exorbitant appetites of his wife. She was not enough. After the divorce, of course, the businessman had more affairs, but all ended in a breakup. Harry, though he could earn good money and live in luxury, did not see money as the meaning of his life. He helped orphans because he himself had suffered a lot as a child and knew how hard it was to survive in orphanages. His only and loyal friend was Simon, a huge dog. The man had traded him for pennies from a vagrant. The puppy was in terrible condition, all skinny, flea-baggy, and with a torn ear. Harry spent a long time with the dog, treated it, vaccinated it, bought special food, and after all brought it out, cured it, and sincerely loved it. So they lived alone with the dog, and so wanted a family, children, and home warmth. His thoughts and memories were interrupted by the same boy, who never left and waited patiently for the stranger to make the boat. "Dude, what's the matter with you? Have you forgotten how to make a boat?" Harry shook his head, driving away the shadows of the past, and suddenly asked, "What's your name, kid? Where did you get that leaf? What is it? It's very important for me to know." The boy looked at him in surprise. "My name is Andy. I took a piece of paper from home out of a pile of old notebooks." "Why? It was just lying around anyway." Harry put aside this yellowed sheet of paper, reached into his briefcase, and pulled out a blank sheet of scrapbook paper from the folder. The man finished the ship, gave it to the joyful boy, and walked over to his grandmother with that very note. He did not know how to ask and where to begin the conversation. "Good afternoon. My name is Harry. Excuse me, but your grandson just asked me to make a boat out of this sheet, and I happened to read a note. Here it is. Take a look. You see, it probably looks silly and ridiculous from the outside, but it's my note. I wrote it years ago to a girl, Ashley. Do you know her? How else would you have had this note in your house?" The elderly woman sighed heavily. "It's a pleasure, and I'm Clara Jones." "Oh, you're right, young man. Ashley is my late daughter. She died 7 years ago in childbirth." "Oh, the poor thing. Now I'm raising my grandson all by myself. It's so hard. I have no strength or health. And the note I don't even know. My daughter had a love affair in the next town. It's true. Maybe she loved you a lot because she kept it so carefully." Harry asked dumbfoundedly, "How did she die? What's Ashley Smith's last name? When's Andy's birthday?" Clara Jones responded, "Yes, that's right. Andy was born in the summer, on June 9, and I don't know by whom, and my daughter was like a partisan. She kept quiet until the last minute. She lived in another city for a while, worked in a cafe. She called me often, chirped that she met her love, the real love. Like everything was so good, they were already living together, and the wedding was soon. And then suddenly she drove home with her things, in tears and still pregnant. She sobbed into her pillow but didn't say a word. I went on and on with her, but she wouldn't do anything. She must have been really hurt. She must have been really hurt. She had a fight with her boyfriend and could not forget him. I am not a beast. I felt sorry for my baby, I grumbled, but forgave her and accepted her daughter. I didn't bother her with questions. I thought she would give birth and tell everything herself, but you see how it all turned out. Oh, what a shame. Pregnancy was hard, the labor was hard. The labor was hard. They barely saved Andy, but they couldn't save the daughter. When they told me my daughter was gone, I couldn't believe it. How could it be? I took a healthy woman to the maternity ward, and she was killed. She was still young. She was still young. She would have lived and lived. At first I thought I would go crazy with grief. I was angry. I did not want to take the baby. It seemed to me that all the trouble was because of him. But then my heart wavered. I went to see him, and when I took my grandchild in my arms, I felt light and warm. I felt light and warm. Such a miracle, redhead batting his eyes. And I was so choked up, I thought, but he is an innocent soul, not guilty of anything. Moreover, he himself was left an orphan, and his father's dead, and his mother's dead, and his mother's dead. What awaits him? An orphanage. And me? How can I live, eat, and sleep peacefully, knowing that my grandson is in orphanages? So I took my grandson and we lived together. It's hard for me, of course, to pull him on one pension. I save on everything, and I cannot work. A damn limp interferes. Oh, I'm talking about something. Apparently, accumulated for many years, Harry was completely shocked. Everything matched. Was Andy really his son? He looked like a redhead, but he was blonde, even though Ashley also had beautiful honey-colored hair and pimples on his nose. So maybe he took after his mother. Oh my gosh. How could I check it all out? And then it dawned on the man. He discreetly took off the shoulder of the boy's fallen hair and put it in his pocket, and he continued the conversation. How long have you been limping, Clara Jones? What kind of illness do you have? It's not just impudence or curiosity. I want to help you. The woman replied, Oh, it's been a long time, honey. It's been 9 years since I fell on my knee in the ice, and I've been having problems with my leg ever since. It's getting worse every year. I hurt my joints. Doctors prescribe useless ointments and injections and hint at an expensive operation to change the entire joint. What a lot of money. Where can I get it? It began to get dark, and the woman realized, oh, it's time for us to go home. By the time I get there, it'll be nightfall, and my grandson hasn't had his supper yet. Harry suggested, let me give you a ride home. It's no problem. My car is here in the parking lot near the park. Granny wailed, Thank you, my dear man. I won't refuse. And when I think about how long it's going to take, Harry gave his grandmother and Andy a ride home to see where they lived. The house was quite shabby, unkept, the fence hanging on by a thread, the windows still with shutters, and it was obvious that they lived very poorly. They said goodbye warmly, like old acquaintances, and the man went back to his home. He hadn't been himself all evening. The red-headed Andy had been on his mind, and he'd been replaying the very same affair he'd had with Ashley. It was almost immediately after his divorce from his wife. I felt bad and rotten, and for the first time in my life, Harry probably decided to get drunk. No, not drunk, but drunk enough to get all the bad stuff out of my head. He could have done it in an expensive restaurant, of course, but for some reason, he wanted to do it in an ordinary roadside cafe. That's where he met Ashley. This perky redhead with an enchanting smile served him one drink after another, and he was still not drunk. He desperately wanted to talk to someone, to share his problems, but there were no true, faithful friends. He was used to keeping everything to himself, so he kept silent. It was closing time. The customers were gone, and the waitress suddenly sat down next to him and shyly asked, We're closing soon. And you're still as sad as ever. Did something happen to you? Is there something I can help you with? Harry was so moved by this concern and sympathy for a complete stranger that he suddenly responded, You can. Get yourself some wine and repeat it to me, and just listen to me. It's vital to me right now. The girl replied, I can't drink alcohol. I'm at work, and I can't talk to clients either. But as an exception, I'd love to have coffee with you. There's no one else here anyway. I'll be right back. Ashley sat down beside her, and he unknowingly twisted his heart in front of her, something that had never happened to him before. The girl listened earnestly, didn't interrupt, didn't offer any advice. Then suddenly she said, I know how to help you. You need a friend who will always be there for you, who will not betray you, and who will keep you warm. And she confidently led the dazed man somewhere into the back room. Harry didn't understand anything, and Ashley led him out the back door into the patio, bent down and rustled her hand under the porch. Then, panting, she pulled out a large cardboard box. In it, on a soft bedding, funny multicolored kittens were rummaging. She picked up the sturdiest, big-eyed ashy bun and put it on the man's lap. "Here, this is Alex. Don't be afraid, pet him. He'll relieve your moping in no time." These sufferers were left all alone, so I nursed them. At first I even came running from the dropper by the hour to feed. At me all laughed. They did not believe that the kittens will survive. But I got them all up on their feet. And this is my favorite. He really is wonderful, so affectionate. Would you like to keep him? I'd take him. But my cat Lassie is at home. Her mistress won't let me have another kitten. The little kitten trustingly snuggled up to the man. And as soon as he felt his warm hands, he began to cuddle and rub his face, making loud noises. Harry had to smile because he was so cute and adorable. He looked fondly at the waitress and answered, "It really is easier. I'm just like this abandoned kitten. I grew up in a shelter, so I understand what it's like for him, without a mother. I already have a dog. I nursed him for a long time too. And now I'm going to have a cat too. I will take it. It will be more fun in the house. If you promise to come and visit the pet." That's how they began dating, and feelings flared up between them. Ashley was sweet, direct, open. She fell in love with Harry very much. You could see it in her eyes. She looked at him so devotedly. At first, Harry was all fired up too, and the couple even started living together. It was Ashley who taught him how to leave each other cute little notes, how to make nice in little things. Ashley was very simple. She didn't go to social events with him, or rather, she only went once, and it was awkward for both of them. But after a few months, Harry's passion cooled. A joint life got boring, and he began to pick on her, that not the way she cooked dinner, or she does not know how to dress stylishly, does not know how to show himself in high society. Ashley cried and got angry and screamed, "Well, you knew I was just a waitress, so why are we living together? Let's break up since I'm not your type and I'm not worthy to be with you." Then they made up, and everything seemed to go on. But the rift in their relationship was getting bigger and bigger. And then, one night, they had another big fight over nothing, and Ashley couldn't take it anymore. So she slammed the door and left. And Harry didn't stop her. That's how stupidly they broke up. The man plunged back into work. How much water had flowed since then. And only Alex, the fat cat, reminded him of that fleeting romance. It wasn't until now, 7 years later, when he saw Andy, that Harry suddenly realized that maybe Ashley was the only one who loved him for nothing, not for money. And his heart ached so much for not appreciating her sincere feelings, for not being able to build a family, for not being able to hold on to such a good, simple girl. Harry gave the hair to Andy for examination. He wasn't the least bit worried. He was somehow certain the boy was his son. The boy was so ingratiating to Harry, he felt so genuinely sorry for him. And his old, lame grandmother, too. So the very next evening after work, he decided to stop by to see them, just to check on them. On the way, he bought Andy a big remote-controlled racing car, and lots of sweets, a bag of food and a huge cake. Timidly, he knocked on the flimsy gate. Almost immediately, he heard the boy's ringing voice. "Who's there?" "Oh, hello, Uncle Harry. Are you visiting us?" "Come on in." "Wow, is that for me?" "That's great." "Oh, thank you. I've never had such a car." "Vanya will be jealous. He's always teasing me about being naked." The baby was chirping nonstop. My grandmother came out to hear the noise. She just spluttered when she saw what delicacies the guest was putting on the table. "Hello, Harry. Are you visiting us?" Oh, why so many things? It's embarrassing, isn't it? Come in, please. And I've just got some hot pancakes with apples. Don't hesitate to have some. I'll put the kettle on in a jiffy. What brings you here?" Harry looked around. Yes, the place was in need of an overhaul, and it needed it urgently. But it was neat and tidy, and the place looked like it had been cleaned by a child's hand. Harry started a conversation. "You know, Clara Jones, I never told you everything yesterday. It was me your daughter was having an affair with at the time, and it was to her that I wrote that little note on a piece of paper. But then we broke up in a silly way, and that was my fault. I was thinking all night last night, what if Andy is my son? I mean, what if he is? Somehow I just feel like he's not a stranger to me, you know? I don't know how to explain it. So I thought I'd just come down and check up on you. I live alone, or rather with a dog and a cat. But I want to have a family and children. I couldn't make a family when I was young, and now I can't make one either." Clara Jones sighed heavily. "I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it's yours. Maybe it's not. I told you my daughter never really told me anything. She didn't have time. Yeah, I know it's bad enough being alone. You should come visit us more often, sweetheart. We'd love to." Andy's all lit up. "If you don't want any presents, just come over. He misses parental love, I can tell. I can't keep up with him. He's so fast." Harry stayed at Clara Jones's until late at night. He and Andy did puzzles and played airplanes, then had dinner and tea and cake together. Harry caught himself thinking that he felt so good with the baby, his soul filled with warmth, tenderness, and some previously unknown feelings of love for the little defenseless man. But when the results of the examination came back and Harry's eyes widened, it said in black and white that Andy was not his son. They weren't related at all. What a twist. The man sat down on the poofy and just stood there for an hour. After all, he was sure Andy was his own son. He felt some intimate, unseen connection with him. On reflection, Harry did not say anything to Anna Stefanovna yet, but continued to go to visit them. He was always welcome there. The little boy frankly missed him, becoming more and more attached, running to meet him, spreading his arms. One day, in the middle of the night, the alarm bell rang. "Harry, I'm sorry to call you in the middle of the night, but here's the thing. Andy's sick. He's vomiting, has a high fever, and he's clutching his stomach. I called the ambulance, but they're taking too long. I don't know what to do." The man jumped up and down on the bed, his sleep vanishing like a lightning bolt. "I'll be there in a minute. Get him dressed. We're going to the hospital. I'm going to call everyone. They're crazy. They're not coming. I'll be right there." Harry raced like a madman, breaking all the rules of the road, ran into the house, grabbed the boy in his arms, and carried him to the car, whispering to him, "Hold on, soldier. We're going to the hospital now. You'll be all right. Where does it hurt? Let me see." Frightened and crying child was writhing in pain. Aye. My stomach hurts. Am I going to die like my mother? Yes. Everything inside Harry was overturned by these words. "I'm going to die on you now. Be patient. You're a man. Don't scare Grandma, or we'll have to treat her too. I said it'll be okay. Do you believe me?" Andy nodded, gasping for air. "I believe you. You just stay by my side. Don't leave me, okay?" The boy turned out to have appendicitis and was rushed to surgery. Clara Stefanova and Harry were left waiting in the corridor. An hour later, the doctor came out and reported, "Don't worry, Daddy. It's all right. In 3 weeks, he'll be jumping and bouncing. Now go home and come and see her tomorrow. One of you can stay. And that's just as an exception." Harry looked pleadingly at Clara Jones. "I'll call you a cab, you go home, and I'll sit with Andy. I told you everything would be all right." The woman wiped her eyes with her handkerchief and thanked the man. "Thank you for everything. I was just so scared for my grandson. Who to call, where to run. And that leg and the ambulance, as if by chance, is not coming. As I thought that with my grandson something bad, I felt sick. After all, he is the only one I have. There is no one else on this earth." Harry was dozing in a chair in the room, waiting for the boy to wake up from the anesthesia. Finally, he opened his eyes, and when he saw Harry, he smiled pretentiously and said quietly, "Are you here with me?" "Thank you, Uncle Harry. You know, you're like my daddy. Thank you, Uncle Harry." Harry couldn't help himself. The tears rolled from his eyes, and he swallowed them as he crouched close to the child and rubbed his red curls. "I promised, and men always keep their promises. You've become like a son to me, too. I was so worried about you, more than me. You scared me and Grandma. Admit it, you ate sunflower seeds with peels. Why did you have appendicitis?" Harry visited Andy every day, brought him fruit and toys, and knew for sure that he would never be able to part with him. After all, life made no sense at all without that brisk, mischievous boy. That's when Harry decided to have a frank conversation with Clara Jones. The man was very worried. He did not know how she would react. Would she agree to his proposal? Harry brought his grandmother home from the hospital, and they sat down in the kitchen for tea. And Harry began, "Clara Jones, I have a very important conversation to have with you. We've only known each other for a short time, I agree. But as it happens, I've grown quite fond of Andy, and I've grown quite fond of him, and I've grown quite fond of him, and he's become fond of me, as you can see. I'd like to adopt him. I mean, you're old enough now. You never know. I want to live with Andy and raise him and teach him and love him. I could give him a good education, bring him out into the world. How do you feel about that? Don't think I'm not going to keep you two apart. I got a big, solid house, plenty of room for everybody." The woman thought hard, weighed everything, was silent for a long time, and then answered, "We really don't know each other very well, and I'm very scared to make such an important decision. But for some reason, I believe you. You don't have any self-interest, do you? And you don't look like a scoundrel at all. You saved your grandson. You took him to the hospital in the middle of the night. I agree, but know that I'm not one step away from my grandson. You must keep an eye on him. He's so quick. If you're not lying and we'll all live together, have it your way. Otherwise, God forbid, I don't have time to raise my grandson, or he'll end up in an orphanage. That's exactly the fate I don't want for him. But just ask him yourself in front of me. The main thing is that he wants it too. I'm not going to force the child, you know that?" The next day, Harry was pacing the room with Andy. He was holding his side and owling, afraid to straighten up. Then Harry got crafty. "Do you want me to tell you something that will make you forget about your side and jump as a grasshopper?" The boy watched with interest and even stopped oohing and, "How about that? Tell me?" Harry exhaled. "I want to adopt you and take you and your grandmother to live with me. I have a big house, a huge good dog, and Alex the cat. I promise I will love you and never hurt you. How do you like the news? Are you happy?" Andy glowed and almost jumped on the spot. "Hooray! You're going to be my daddy now. For real. That's great. When I first saw you in the park, for some reason I thought you were good. And you were the best." Harry hugged the baby and whispered, "And now, as promised, 2 laps around the ward, and no slacking off. The doctor said you need to pace yourself. Now march." The baby grunted and sniffled, but he paced. He was so happy and excited that he was willing to endure the pain, just so his father would be near him and be proud of him. Harry filed all the necessary adoption papers, and Andy and his grandmother moved in to live with him. Strangely enough, there was not the slightest discomfort. Clara Jones took over the kitchen and was happy to walk the alley and the yard. Though she found it very difficult, Andy quickly made friends with Simon and was very eager to teach him commands. And in the evenings he played with Alex and stroked his belly. Clara Jones showed Harry Ashley's grave. He spent a long time looking at the photo of this young and lovely red-haired woman and thought how unfair it was that she had passed away so early and nothing can be returned. He whispered softly, "Hello, Ashley. I'm sorry, you fool, for not getting you back then, for not trying to save our relationship. I thought, in fact, that you were not the right person for me. What a businessman and a waitress. And only now I realize that you were the only one who loved me so sincerely and selflessly without asking anything in return. Don't worry about your son. He's in good hands. I promise you that I will raise him to be a real man. I will do everything to make him happy. The sun suddenly peeked out from behind the clouds and warmed him with its warm rays. It was Ashley who had responded to him, Harry was sure. He tidied up the grave, ordered an expensive memorial, and began going there often with Andy. On one such visit, Harry saw a young woman in a black lace handkerchief. She was holding 2 roses, and she was crying quietly beside Ashley's grave. Surprised, Harry called out to the stranger, "Good afternoon." "Excuse me, did you know Ashley? Are you a friend of hers?" The woman answered quietly, "Yes, she did." "No, I'm not her friend. But we had a complicated relationship, and the news of her death came as a shock to me. It's a long, long story." Harry and the woman stepped aside the bench. "I'm in no hurry. Tell me everything you know. Everything about Ashley is very important to me now." The stranger sighed and began a confused story. "My name is Amber. You see, I got married early when I was 18. I had a good, kind husband, and I couldn't complain. But God wouldn't let me have children. I was barren. Doctors gave up on me a long time ago. I went to the best professor, and he said that it was hopeless. I would never get pregnant. But my spouse wanted children very much, and so did I. So 7 years ago, we put an ad in the newspaper that we are looking for a surrogate mother. Ashley was the one who responded. My husband and I liked her. Bros Amber, nice girl. But she was embarrassed by the fact that she had no children of her own, as usually such women are not accepted as surrogate mothers. But Ashley insisted, just begged, assured me that she was in good health. She needed a lot of money very urgently. For her mother's surgery, she had something wrong with her legs. So Ashley decided to become a surrogate mother. So we said yes. Of course, everything was on trust. No one signed a contract. We did not want to make it public. Ashley got pregnant successfully. We rented her an apartment, bought her groceries, monitored her well-being, and we couldn't believe with my husband that we would become parents very soon. But with each passing day, Ashley grew darker and darker, cried a lot, and held something back. We began to suspect something was wrong, and after a couple of months, the mom just ran away, leaving a note that she couldn't give up her baby. And she didn't care who the father was. Just like that, and she didn't take any money. We were in shock. We didn't know where to find her. I cried for a long time. I couldn't come to my senses. I was angry at her, but how could she do such an irresponsible thing? 100 times we asked her if she was ready to give up the baby. Does she understand that he is a stranger to her? She agreed to everything, and then she did such a thing. But bad things never come alone. A few years later, my husband was killed when he fell through the ice during a winter fishing trip. I thought I was going crazy with grief, howling day and night. So I was left all alone in the world, childless and unwanted. I forgave Ashley a long time ago because I guess it's really impossible to give up a baby that you carried yourself. It's morally very difficult. And I kept thinking, where's my baby? How is he? After all alone in the world remained. So I decided to look for Ashley, to talk to her, to see if I could see my baby. I went to a lot of trouble to get her address. I got there, and they say she died in childbirth. Now I'm standing here crying, wondering where I could find my son. Harry almost cried as he listened to this sad woman's story and shrieked, pointing to the boy. There he is, Andy, your son. He does look just like you. I wondered what he looked like. Ashley had copper hair too, but not as bright as yours. But I just adopted him, and he calls me Daddy, and we love each other. I'm not just going to give him to you. The woman covered her face with her hand and wept bitterly. How can this be? I am his own mother. He is my own flesh and blood. How unfair everything in life is. The boy considers a woman who is essentially a stranger to him to be his mother and you to be his father. And me? What about me? Will I live alone and not see, not communicate with my own son? Then there's no reason to live. Harry felt so sorry for this poor stranger with her fate twisted and broken. Indeed, how cruel it is to know that you have your own son and not be able to see him, to love him, to bring him up. Shouldn't be like that. And the man exclaimed emotionally, Amber, look, don't despair. I mean, really, aren't you and I human? Can't we agree on how to raise a child, or are we going to tear him apart? I have a proposition for you. Move in with me, for good. I have a big house, and I'll give you the second-floor bedroom with a balcony. I live there with Andy and his grandmother. We'll raise our son together. I know it sounds crazy to move in with a man you've known for half an hour, but I assure you, I have no evil intentions. I'm a respected businessman, Harry Johnson. A lot of people know and respect me. It's just that I see how you're tormented, so I want to help you. After all, if you don't like something, you can always split up, can't you? I only have one condition. Don't shock the baby and tell him that you are his mother. It'll break his mind. Little by little Andy will get used to you, will reach out, and I'm sure he'll call you Mom. Amber nodded her head. Yes, of course you're right. It would be a total shock to the boy because he thinks his mother is dead and resting here. And he won't accept me with open arms just like that. That's understandable too. Thanks for the offer. Can I think about it? Let's exchange addresses and phone numbers. I still need some time to sort out work and relocation issues. Harry hasn't been himself all week since his conversation with Amber at the cemetery. This sad, lonely stranger who turned out to be Andy's own mother was deeply in his heart. He thought about her day and night, wondering if she would decide to move in with him or not. In his heart, he wished she would. For some reason, the man was drawn to her, wanted to see those big, sad eyes again, and to catch the faint floral scent of her perfume. Amber, on the other hand, rushed around the apartment, packing her things into her suitcase, thinking, my God, what am I doing? Who am I going? Who am I going? Who am I going to? To a strange, unfamiliar man in another city. I'm leaving my usual job, and who knows what it will be like there. I'm crossing out my whole life in one fell swoop, like jumping into an abyss. And on the other hand, what kind of life? A life full of loneliness and sadness, tears and pain. What am I missing? The tired route? Work? Empty housework? There's my son, Andy. He's a beautiful little snub. Nosed redhead. So what if they're strangers and he doesn't know her? So what if he doesn't know her? But she would be there, like a guardian angel, to protect him and love him. And time will fix everything. No, that's it. To hell with it all. My son is more important. All the way there, Amber was pounding with chills. She bought her son an expensive robot and a fancy backpack and timidly knocked on the gate. A huge dog barked in the yard. Suddenly she heard the voice of the owner. Simon, you can't. Who's there? Harry stepped out onto the porch, and his heart began to beat faster as Amber stood there. How beautiful she looked in her cute beret and cashmere coat, a redhead strand of hair flicking out from under it and curling behind her ear. Her huge eyes looked so frightened. She said, well, here I am. Welcome a new tenant. I hope you haven't changed your mind, and that's okay. I should have called, shouldn't I? Harry smiled broadly and replied, Amber, honey, come on in. And let's keep it on a first-name basis since we're going to be living together. I'm really glad you accepted my offer. I've warned Clara Jones, but I haven't told her all the details yet. I don't think it would be easy for her to know that her daughter died, giving birth to a stranger's child. Said you were a good old friend of mine. Well, what are we standing here for? Please. The man took the heavy suitcase by the handle and rolled it into the house, showing him the rooms on the way and telling him where and what was there. Curious, Andy immediately ran up to the guest. "Hello. I remember you. We met my mom's cemetery. Are you coming to visit us? Why do you have a suitcase? Will you be staying with us?" The little boy asked his guest a lot of questions, not even knowing what was going on in the woman's soul when he uttered the phrase at his mother's cemetery. Amber was embarrassed. She was distraught by the baby's words, and she didn't know what to answer. But Harry saved the situation and said, "It's Amber, a friend of your mom's, and a good friend of mine. She's going to live with us and work as your nanny. I'm at work all day, and Grandma's old. She can't keep up with you. Amber will take care of you and play with you so you don't get bored. I'm sure you two will become friends," the baby exclaimed joyfully. "That's great. It'll help me with my lessons because I don't know a thing about math." Amber breathed a sigh of relief. Now her presence here was understandable and unintimidating, and Andy would get used to her quicker. It was a great idea Harry had, after all, and there was no need for Clara Jones to explain, especially since Harry was just preparing to take her grandmother to a professor he knew to consult on a knee operation. The man really wanted to help Andy's grandmother so that she would stop limping so badly and suffering from joint pain. And if there was to be an operation, Andy would certainly need a babysitter while Grandma was in the hospital. And so they all began to live together, slowly getting used to each other and becoming really close. Amber and Andy hit it off, and the boy reached out to her as if he could feel the invisible thread between them that bound them together by blood. They enjoyed studying together, taking walks, watching cartoons, and playing with Alex the cat. Amber and Harry had a long, friendly relationship. They liked to have a glass of wine with appetizers on weekends and have a long, intimate conversation until late at night about life. The man did not hold back, telling her about his difficult childhood, about the failed past romances. And Amber did not hide anything, complained that she could never have a child by herself, as childless, that she still remembers her husband and misses him. Both felt a mutual sympathy, an attraction to each other, but did not dare to cross the line. Their shared concern for their son united them so much that they felt like one family. Clara Jones has long watched the couple from the sidelines, and long ago realized that Harry and Amber love each other, just cannot admit it to themselves. So she decided to help them. She seized a moment when Amber took Andy to the karate class and decided to talk. "Listen, Harry, I've lived my life. I've seen a lot of things, and I keep looking at you and Nanny, and I just can't understand it. Why do you torture each other? You already live together. It's obvious you love each other, so get married, and that's the end of it. My grandson adores Amber. He adores her. And life is only one. The years go by quickly." Harry was taken aback. "How did you know that?" "I do love Amber, but there's a secret. And I don't know how to tell you about it. I'm afraid of hurting you, too. That's why I'm hesitant to propose to her. And she's afraid that if the truth comes out, you'll hate her and Andy won't understand." The elderly woman only waved a hand. "Oh, I know what you're keeping secret there. Don't mind me. I've been wandering around a lot at night. I can't sleep. I'm old. I realized that Amber was Andy's mother, and Ashley was mine, trying to be a surrogate for her. I couldn't help but overhear your intimate conversations. I cried secretly at first, and I was a little mad at Amber, like my daughter had her baby, and she died. But you can't undo the past. I see how my grandson loves her, and she loves him sincerely. Everyone has his own cross to bear. Don't drag it out, honey. Amber's just waiting for you to ask her to marry you. Everybody's human. Everybody needs warmth and affection. And about Andy, you don't have to tell him anything. For Christ's sake, he's too young. Let him think of Ashley as my mother, and he'll call Amber his mother soon enough. You'll see." Harry was even moved by these words. "What a wise woman you are, Clara Jones. Thank you for understanding. And don't be angry. You're probably right to live in the here and now, not look back on the past. Oh, I forgot. I paid for your joint replacement surgery. So get ready to be on the ward on Monday. Don't worry about Andy. We'll take care of him. I just want you to get better. I can't bear to see you suffering with that knee. Clara Jones spluttered her arms and almost cried. God, Harry, honey. Thank you. That's a lot of money. You spared no expense for another man's old lady. I've never met anyone like you. You're a golden man. Harry was even embarrassed. What a stranger you are. You're my son's grandmother, a member of the family. Come on, overpraise me. Let's go drink tea instead. That same night, there was a quiet knock on the door to Amber's room. The woman rubbed her eyes sleepily and staggered to the door in her thin, lacy nightgown. Quietly, she opened the door and froze. Harry was standing on the threshold with a pillow in his hands. He slipped inside, hugged the woman sharply, and whispered, "Can I join you? Will you let me go? Amber, honey, I can't do this anymore. I'm not made of iron. Be mine forever and ever. I've never met anyone like you." Finally, Amber waited. She heard the very words she had longed for, and responded passionately to the kiss. Harry picked up the featherlight woman in his arms and carried her to the bed, covering every millimeter of her body with kisses. They didn't sleep a wink until dawn, and only the sly moon peeking out the window was a witness to their love and passion. Since that day, it was as if Amber had been replaced. She was no longer sad, but fluttered about the house, her euphonious laughter spilling out everywhere. Clara Jones, seeing this, crossed herself silently and whispered, "Well, thank God, at least they'll be happy since my Ashley didn't succeed." Andy really was calling Amber Mom more often, the words slipping out of his mouth and the words slipping out of his mouth, and the woman was happy to say Sonny. Clara Jones had been safely operated on and had almost lost her limp and was now able to enjoy gardening, her favorite flower beds, and long walks. And she was eternally grateful to Harry and to God for helping them meet in the park. A year went by. Amber and Harry had been married for a long time, and they lived together as friends. The man was very proud of his family. He rushed home with all his might, knowing that everyone there looked forward to him, loved and respected him. Amber took care of household chores and enjoyed her role as a mother, devoting all her time to her son. But lately she hadn't been feeling well. She often felt nauseous, especially in the mornings. Her appetite was gone and she couldn't eat anything. And then she woke up with a vicious hunger and literally swept everything off the table. She also lost a lot of weight, and for some reason she wanted to sleep. Amber was exhausted, read a lot of diagnoses on the internet, and began to suspect the worst. But she was afraid to go to the doctor because he might tell her that she had nothing left to live for. So she endured everything, hoping that it would pass by itself. Harry, too, began to suspect something was wrong. His wife was very different, distracted, often cried in secret, and intimacy was less frequent. He tormented himself, thinking that maybe Amber had fallen out of love and was tormented, not knowing how to tell her. Or maybe he was seeing someone else. He just couldn't get over it. And only Clara Jones long ago guessed what it was all about. And one day she couldn't stand it. Girl will be, I'll tell you that. The signs are true. Her nose is covered with freckles, and she's hungry for sweets. Doesn't look like a boy. I was in labor when Ashley was pregnant, and I ate all the cakes and gingerbread. Harry and Amber looked at her dumbfounded and asked in one voice, "Who's having a girl?" "What are you talking about?" The pensioner only laughed. "God. They're both in their 30s, and they still don't realize they're about to have a baby. That's hilarious. Andy, my grandson, you're gonna have a sister. Mark my grandmother's words." Amber just waved her hand. "No. It's impossible. Don't make up God knows what. I have been childless for a long time. It's been many years since medical experts diagnosed me. I'm just sick, but I don't know what it is. It's hard and bad for me. Harry only clapped his eyes and didn't know how to react. Had Grandma gone crazy? All Clara Jones said was, "You think my grandmother's gone crazy in her old age? Well, in our village we used to use omens to determine the due date, pregnancy, and sex of the child. It'll be a girl, and that's it." The couple whispered all night, didn't sleep a wink, and early the next morning, Harry, despite his wife's protests, took her to the gynecologist. What could it be? Amber sobbed and couldn't believe her ears as the doctor ran the probe over her abdomen and told her, showing her on the monitor, "You're pregnant, 3 months pregnant. Everything is fine. Why are you crying? There's nothing wrong with the baby. I'll say it again. Be happy." The woman explained confusedly through her sobs, "I'm glad. It's just that I was told years ago that I was hopelessly infertile, so I didn't expect to get pregnant at all. It's like a miracle." The doctor only grinned. "Child is a miracle. We've seen more than that here. So your doctor was wrong. Things happen. Get dressed, Mommy, and don't cry. Take care of yourself." Harry almost went crazy with the happiness that came over him. Wow, he was going to be a father. He and Amber were going to have a baby. He'd never even dreamed of it. Now all he wanted was for Andy to get it right and not be upset or jealous. When Harry and Amber arrived from the hospital, they found Clara Jones crying at home. "Harry, Amber, this has happened. Andy escaped. That's the trouble with my tongue. I told him yesterday it was gonna be a girl, and my grandson got it all wrong. I came to wake him up this morning and he was gone. I went to the yard, no. I went around the whole neighborhood. I don't know what to do. Where should I look for him? Where could he have gone?" Suddenly dawned on Amber, "I know where he is. At his mother's cemetery. Hurry up and go. Silly boy, I can imagine what he's been up to." The couple went to the cemetery. Indeed, a sad and weeping Andy was sitting on her grave. When he saw Harry and Amber, the boy screamed, "Go away, you don't need me now. I'm a stranger to you, and soon you'll have a baby of your own. What do you need me for? I'll only get in the way." Amber couldn't hold back. She fell to her knees. "Son, my darling, what are you saying? My little one, I love you more than life. I swear, we will all raise our little sister together, but you will not make me and Daddy love you any less." Andy wiped his nose and looked at Harry incredulously. "Really, Daddy? You won't fall out of love with me either. Honestly. The man picked up the baby in his arm and hugged him tightly. "I give the word of a man. You are my son and I am proud of you. And you will always be not only that, but you're the eldest son. Don't ever do that again. Don't run away. You gave us a big scare. Grandma's been crying all morning. Come on. Let's go home. Don't upset Ashley's mom. She's in heaven. But she's worried about you and Amber's mom." On the way, Andy snuggled up to Amber, calmed down, and fell asleep. He realized that he was important and needed in this family. He was loved and cared for deeply. Amber's pregnancy was hard, with swelling and toxemia. But Harry was very supportive and took such touching care of her, kneading her legs and lower back, helping her put her shoes on, stroking her put her shoes on, stroking her belly so the baby wouldn't push so hard. Andy was also so funny, putting his ear to his belly and talking to his little sister. "Hey, hi, can you hear me? I'm your brother, Andy." Surprisingly, the baby always tapped his foot in response, as if responding, "It was so funny." Harry had taken a parenting class with Amber, and he had agreed to a partner delivery, which he regretted very much. He fainted 3 times, broke into a cold sweat, and was amazed at the strength and agony women went through to give birth. At last he heard the long-awaited cry, and his heart was relieved. When the daughter was placed on his wife's chest and he was allowed to take her in his arms, it was such an indescribable moment of happiness to hold the lump that was the dearest baby in the world. When Amber was discharged from the hospital, everyone was afraid of how Andy would react, because it's one thing to just talk about having a baby sister and another to live with her. But to everyone's surprise, the son took the role of big brother very responsibly. He watched the baby, played with her, rocked the cradle. Vanessa was very calm, almost never cried, and always smiled at her brother, reaching out to him in her arms. Harry just melted as he watched this adorable picture. He hugged both of them and mumbled, "How much I love you." And Amber often thought to herself, "Thank you, Ashley, not only for your son, but for such a wonderful husband. Because if it weren't for you, Harry and I never would have met."